the gym complements your focus on education, right? They work in tandem. If you ever find yourself whereby you say you can't work out or you can't go to the gym or you can't do this, then your priorities are misaligned. I do enjoy drinking, but I'm really focused on my business. I'm really focused on growing my business, on my brand. So I've taken a year or two off drinking, and that girl will be super impressed because from a woman's perspective, she sees a guy who's super fucking driven, who's after his goals, who's determined. Even if he achieves them or not, that's not the point. If you are between should you drink or should you party, you need to understand what your priorities are. If your goal is bigger than the session, you won't actually want to be out getting pissed on a Friday night, on Tinder on a Saturday, and then doing it all over again on Saturday night. What is up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Kickoff Sessions. This week's session is a Q&A. It is our 50,000 subscriber Q&A, which is absolutely wild. I like to say first it happened slowly, then all at once. And after just under 3 years, we've now hit 50,000 subscribers, which is good. You know, it's a good milestone to hit, but there's much more to come in the future. So as a bit of a thank you, I want to do more of these Q&A sessions to find out exactly what type of struggles people have, what type of questions do you have, and how can I help basically you as well along this journey, because instead of this being one-dimensional, me just asking random questions to guests, it's good to get people's feedback and to get into the detail. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through some of your best questions. I've got many. I haven't actually gone through them yet, but we're going to go through them in close detail today, and I'm going to get into everything on that. But again, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone supported. And if you do find this helpful, please like this video, leave a review, leave a comment, and subscribe as well if you can. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on audio as well, it becomes a huge help for us to get to bigger audiences. And as I like to say, the bigger the audience, the bigger the guests we can get every single week. So, all right, let's get straight into it. First question here is advice on balancing a social life in college with a business and your gym goals. The way I look at this is the fact that I think if you are thinking about balancing a social life and your business professional life, they're completely different, right? They both have different outcomes, they both have different inputs, and you should not be thinking of them as the same way. If there's a clash between the two, I think that kind of means that you're a bit less focused on the actual goals you want to achieve, right? The way I kind of think about this is that when I was in college, I didn't really give a fuck about my degree. I wanted to do really well, and I ended up getting a first-class honors in my degree, but I wasn't really that interested in it. It wasn't that I wanted to become an engineer. So as a result, I got pulled into the social life kind of things quite a lot. Now, being from Ireland, a lot of the college nights out are pretty shit, not going to lie. So I never had that urge to go out and drink during the week or party during the week. For me, it was always the bigger events. So how I situated this was I wanted to travel quite a lot during the summer because, again, I don't really want to be in Ireland, which is why I'm not there anymore. So what I would do is during the year, I would focus so clearly in on my professional goals, which was the education at the time, right? And I had all of my focus in on that. That became very helpful because the gym complements your focus on education, right? They work in tandem. If you ever find yourself whereby you say you can't work out or you can't go to the gym or you can't do this, then your priorities are misaligned. Everything should work around your health and fitness, and it complements your education. And I'll give you a very good example. When I was in final year of high school, so my leaving cert, I gave up the gym to focus on my education, and I ended up being way more burned out, way more stressed, under way more pressure. And in contrast, in university, I always kept my gym and physical health around my work, around my education. Even when I had exams, I would go to an exam in university and then go to the gym afterwards. Or if I had an evening exam, I would go to the gym in the morning like 7 or 8 a.m. and then go into the exam itself at like 4 p.m. They complement each other. Same with the business. As I mentioned on my podcast before, my first business was a Shopify store, an e-commerce store called Urban Kit Clothing, with vintage clothing when I was like 21 years old. That complemented everything I was doing because I had to be super dialed in to make sure that, you know, the store was running effectively, the ads were running effectively, that the business was basically a business. And that helped me with other areas of my life. So the business, education, and your gym are all in together. The clash here is the social life. Because the social life are friends that are trying to keep you poor, are other people that are trying to pull you away from your goals. If you are around people who are not saying that, who are not behind you, who do not push you, who do not spur you on, and do not add to your life, then they're not people you should be around with all the time. Your friends should support you on the mission. They should drive you forward and invigorate you in that pursuit. They shouldn't detract from the goal. If your friends are, you might need better friends. Your existing friends might not be the ones that are going to end up in the future. And that's okay, right? As your time goes on, as your life goes on, these social outings and social experiences change. So if you are in pursuit of a 1-1 in your degree, if you want to build that business, if you want to have a good physique and a great physique, you need to give up some of your old tendencies, right? The habits that led you to where you are today are not necessarily the habits that are going to get you to be, a millionaire or unbelievable shape or whatever. It happens over time and adjusts. I think that's the best approach to have, is the fact that things are fluid. And your changes, a lot of this stuff are quite fluid, so make sure that you don't get too stuck in your traditional behaviors. And places like Ireland are, a haven for traditional behaviors to basically keep the same over and over again. So if you want to achieve great things, you have to be able to separate your social life from the business and professional life. And that's how you're going to get there. All right, next question. How do you create content from ideas to release? So people kind of think that I've only been at this content game for a few months, but it's actually not the reality. I've been creating content for many years, over 3 years, would you believe, that when I started Kickoff Sessions, that's when I started releasing stuff. But it's not the way it is today. Today, we have a content flywheel that basically releases a long form episode. We run short form off it. We run clips off it. We write newsletters. We write LinkedIn content, Twitter content, Instagram content. But it didn't start out like that. When I'm speaking to even clients or prospects right now, we don't try to jump into the deep end too much. We just try to show what the future state is. So just like I described, we want to be everywhere all at once. However, in the beginning, it didn't start like that. For me, what I would try to do was just stay very consistent. So I had a long form episode that was coming out on my podcast every single week, and it looked like shit, it felt like shit, and my questions were shit often. But over time, that got better. And as I got better at creating content and just releasing content, it gave me the flexibility to say, well, what else could we do? Could we add on short form? Can we add on newsletters? Is there anything else we can do to increase the amount of output and outcomes that we have? Right now, our outcomes that we're looking for are better guests, bigger audience, growing the channel, building the business, obviously using a lot of our content too as lead generation, because people discover our podcast, realize that we're not full of shit, and then they want to work with us because we're actually good at what we do. So what we're trying to do is position our content in that regard. So my advice here is start from one core piece of content. I know Dan Cole references his newsletter. I think Dakota Robertson does something quite similar too. He uses his newsletter as his source of truth for his content. For me, it's my podcast, right? Because I like interviewing other people. I was not naturally skilled in the beginning. I didn't have that much experience. I'm not this fucking, unbelievable entrepreneur. So I like to leverage other people's experiences and bring them onto my show. I position my own content around that. So that's where we've been able to scale up and be able to have this flywheel effect. So my advice here for someone is that pick a vehicle, whether it is writing on Twitter, whether it is posting a podcast, writing newsletters, or posting on LinkedIn. Have a core vehicle that you can build on and wrap your entire life around. And that's how you're going to actually be able to grow and scale much more substantially. And that's what happened with me, right? And over time, you'll want to make small adjustments. I think it's quite funny as well, because people probably see my podcast now, video, we do a lot of video work, but what you forget is the fact that I was posting on LinkedIn of all platforms, which I know gets a lot of fucking hate from people, but I love it because it's the best for lead generation, it's the best for a high net worth individual network, and it's great to be able to find great guests who are actually accomplished and aren't just making it up like 21-year-olds on Twitter. So I originally posted on LinkedIn every single day for like 2 years, and no one even knew who I was. Even to this day, I only have like 6,000 followers on the platform, because it's not about that. It's more quality than quantity of numbers. It's not about the flash, it's about the depth. And that gave me a really good experience in terms of writing, distilling my thoughts, my own philosophies around content, persuasion, how do we interact with people. And it really, really helped to be able to take this into long form. And even today, be able to speak, because I'm able to think through a lot of my own philosophies through writing, which I use LinkedIn for. got that audience and was able to bring it to different platforms. So that's kind of my advice there. Pick a platform and go all in on that before you diversify after a while. How did you get past the urge to have a beer or two on a Friday or Saturday evening, or instead work? I get this question quite a lot, and I think how I distill this down is, if you are between should you drink or should you party, you need to understand what your priorities are. If your goal is bigger than the session, you won't actually want to be out getting pissed on a Friday night, on Tinder on a Saturday, and then doing it all over again on Saturday night. You'll be so focused in on a bigger goal than yourself, then you're not going to be fearful of what you're going to be missing out. There's not going to be that fear of missing out. There's just going to be that focus in on a particular goal. For me, with Kickoff Sessions is to help younger people live a richer and more fulfilling life. And that might sound kind of woo-woo, but the whole idea here is the fact that it's actually working. Like, people literally listen to the podcast. I got a voice note about 2 weeks ago from a guy who listened to my podcast with Jack Hopkins. He didn't text me. He went off, built an agency, brought it to 6K, and now he's moving to like Marbella or some shit. And I thought that gave me so much more energy versus, oh, I'm just doing this for my own like status. I'm only doing this for my own interest, which is, it's not the fact. When you have a goal that's bigger than you, that's much more fulfilling, it becomes really, really easy to stay aligned to that goal. So that's on the Kickoff Sessions front. From in terms of Voix, our company, our media company, the goal there, of course, is to build a global media company, is to be like the Barstool of podcasting, or to be like VaynerMedia, to have this huge brand that we can get behind and people can get behind, and we can bring in some great clients, whether they're Fortune 500 companies, blue chip companies, large organizations that we can work with to improve their podcast. That is a goal for me. So when the goal is bigger than the session, it's completely fine. So when the Saturday and Sunday roll around, it's not that I just like sit down and do nothing with my time. I change the priority. So on Saturday mornings, I write my newsletter. On Sundays, I clean up my CRM for the most part, because it's usually filled with like, changes throughout the week, sales calls coming in and out. So I need to have at least like an hour or two whereby I'm really focused in on like cleaning up a CRM, right? So that's kind of like more on the business front. All right, people, we're just going to take one short little break for a little update about Podcast University. So if you enjoy podcasts like this and you want to start your own podcast, head down to the links down below to Podcast University. This is a learning platform that I've built to help people like you build, launch, and scale your own podcast. I wasted many years doing this, making it all up as I go. So I put everything together in a very seamless and easy to follow course for you guys to follow and just learn exactly how to do it. So if you want to bypass a lot of the mess with your podcast, check out the links down below to Podcast University, and it will show you exactly how to launch and scale your own podcast. But then more on the personal side of things, I've lived in a tropical climate for the past couple of years. I have a lot of interests that involve being outside, right? It's not like Ireland or England whereby it's raining for 99% of the time and people are like fucking miserable and everyone's just trying to get you into a pub or just get you on a session, do something that's net negative for your health and happiness overall. Instead, I have goals that are much more enjoyable, right? So for instance, I mentioned previously on my podcast that I started surfing. I've surfed previously the last couple of years, but I've gotten more serious with it. And by serious with it just means that I just do it 3 or 4 times a week. It sucks a lot of the time, but because I have this goal that's like very different than business, very different than the podcast, it's like, it's creative, it's technical, it's skill-based, it's skill-orientated. I enjoy looking forward to it and I enjoy even doing it, right? And similarly then as well, because I have this more time, more energy, I can do other things. I have a shit ton of dogs. I have 5 dogs, so we can spend time just either chilling out, going somewhere. In Asia, there's always more things you can do than you can imagine. So you're only limited by your creativity for the most part. So instead of thinking, what DJ is coming to town? How can I get pissed from this DJ? And how can I meet people who are similar to myself that are just getting pissed? It's completely different. And I like the fact that when you wake up on a Sunday, you feel revitalized. You feel like you have energy. And when I'm working through stuff, I honestly feel more productive on Saturday and Sunday than I do Monday to Friday. I think that's because my slack is off for most of the day. I don't feel the pressure. I don't have podcasts coming up that are on that day. So I can be a bit more creative. And I actually get way more work done. And I think it was recently, I was working in a coffee shop recently and I came home at like 3 or 4 and I was speaking to my girlfriend and I was like, yep. Like I'm done. Like I'm done for the day. Like I have everything done, because when you have that clear focus, it makes it way more enjoyable. And I don't feel stressed and pressure. So I think it's quite interesting. Like as I kind of became like fucking Mr. Entrepreneur, I I felt actually less pressure to some degree because I don't have the opportunity cost of going off and doing other stuff. When I was working at 9 to 5, it was like so difficult to like plan and prepare my content and do everything and try get everything in. I was like maxing out my day. Whereas now I feel like that I'm way more better at executing, and it's about working on the 80% of the tasks or the 20% of tasks that bring me 80% results. And this has made a big significance in my life. And I feel like as we're thinking in terms of decades, it's the best way for you to detach yourself from the outcome and rush and rush and rush. And also, when you're not drinking, you're half as less anxious. So it's not that I feel like I need to keep on working hard during the week. I can chill out, I can take it easy, and I can plan for better times. And it's a good way for you to approach your business. Main challenges in moving and setting up everything in Bali. Any issues with leaving Ireland? There isn't really much of a challenge getting set up in Bali. The main thing you need is just cash in your pocket. You need to know exactly what visas you want. You need to set up correctly. Work with an agency. I've worked with an agency for the last couple of years when I've been in Bali because they know the legislation, they know the work, they know exactly what you need to do. So if you want to get set up here, you need to work with a really good agency. They're very helpful. In terms of Ireland, I haven't been based in Ireland for quite some years. To be honest, I've really cut a lot of my ties with it being in Ireland. Like my business isn't based in Ireland. My lifestyle isn't based in Ireland. It's only my parents that are based in Ireland. So I've never really had much issues there. So getting set up in Asia in general, you really just want to pick a country that's helpful for you in terms of visas, that you can get a long-term visa and be set up here for a long time. And also it fits your lifestyle, right? If not being in Asia doesn't fit your lifestyle, then so be it. But that's the main reason for me. What's the average day for myself? So day in life for me, always for the last couple of years, has been very consistent, right? So if I wake up early, I like to tackle the biggest piece of work first thing in the morning. People talk about, go on these walking trips in the morning and all this bullshit. I found the biggest way for me to alleviate any stress or anxiety was just doing the work. Instead of talking about it, instead of planning it, I just got up and did it. So people think like scheduling out work and putting it in your calendar is enough to plan work. It's just another variety of procrastination. There's nothing better than setting aside your biggest task of the day and then just going doing it from 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whenever that may be. I never set an alarm. I don't think there's a point to set an alarm. I just wake up naturally. If I go to bed at 9 or 10, I'm going to wake up anyway at 5 or 6 naturally. Then from there, I think once I get my big task out of the way, eat, train. I spend a lot of time training. I'll spend like an hour training, which I'm doing either like a upper lower push-pull legs program, and then I'm doing a bit of cardio. So the biggest thing in Asia is the fact that it is quite hot. You can't really spend like all day walking around. Even when I was in Singapore, I couldn't really like walk all the time. It's so hot there. So instead, do a lot of cardio in the gym. I'll do cardio on the bike. I'll walk in the gym as well sometimes. And then from there, just going into the next work session, and then we're planning out some podcast content. So for me, a lot of this is strategic work. I think when I moved from the Voex being just like a basic agency into a media company, it's when I removed myself from a lot of the challenges in the day-to-day. And I've had advisors that helped me a lot with this, like Tim Stoddard, who's on my podcast a lot. He was a big advisor for us. And he basically like taught me how to get myself out of the company. So we focus on growth. I way more focus on that CEO role, which is just hiring, sales, and marketing, and improving the systems. So that's kind of a big kind of focus. It's always very strategic. Now, I am very lucky because we have a head of production. Piyush is great for running the team. He's general manager, and he basically takes care of a lot of the day-to-day stuff, right? So that becomes hugely valuable. And then at night, unfortunately, a lot of things for me involve working very late at night. So I have a lot of podcasts that are recorded at night because my guests are either in they're either East Coast or West Coast America for the most part, and I want to accommodate them. So I'll record very late for me, or they can record either for them. Depends what suits better in their time schedule. Would you find sobriety harder if you were single? It's a good question. I think it would be single because there's an attachment between drinking and dating, and usually if you're going to go date, you're going to do this over like a drink or two. However, I think at this point in my life, I'm way more mature than I was at like 23, 24, whereby I would go out with a girl, probably 22, 23, and bring them for like a drink. Like we'd get like a bottle of wine. I'd probably smash like 80% of it anyway, because the girl like barely drinks. And it was just situated around drinking. Whereas I feel like if you are struggling to break up, to leave alcohol, but you want to date and you want to seem social. I think the best way to do it is just to be upfront and be like, oh, like, I do enjoy drinking, which I do sometimes, but I don't do it anymore. I do enjoy drinking, but I'm really focused on my business. I'm really focused on growing my business, on my brand. So I've taken a year or two off drinking. And that girl will be super impressed because from a woman's perspective, she sees a guy who's super fucking driven, who's after his goals, who's determined. Even if he achieves them or not, that's not the point. The point is that this person isn't wasting their life. In contrast, if you met a girl and you're like, yeah, let's go on a massive session, let's get a bottle of wine, let's go out afterwards for more drinks, she'll think, okay, this guy is fun, but it's not someone that I want to be with. And that's a big challenge, right? It's like if you're trying to date someone, ideally you're trying to date to be with like a partner. There's obviously all different variations of why people date, but my idea is that you date someone to be a partner with them, and that's a big impact. Similarly with friends, as I mentioned, like if you're thinking that your friends can't be around you because you can't drink, then they're like not the right friends, right? If they're like nudging you on, they do that out of their own insecurities. If their insecurities are pushing on you to say you should be drinking, why aren't you as fun as what you used to be anymore? It'd be like, mate, I'm not 16 anymore. When I was 16, 17, which is probably like underage for drinking, I was drinking fucking more than someone who's 25 years old. And then you leave that lifestyle to go build a different lifestyle. And that's how I kind of think about it, especially if you're single. What's one question you'd love to go back and ask a guest? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think there's enough questions like out there that have been answered with some guests. It's all about certain circumstances. So as I mentioned, Kickoff Sessions is all around helping younger people. I think helping people go from 0 to 1 as fast as possible is one of the best questions you could ask someone because it's actionable. So for instance, if it's someone like Justin Waller, even if it's someone like Joe Delaney, Rob Lipset, if you can ask them, how do I go from 0 to 1 with my business, my fitness, my health as fast as possible? That helps a lot because it lets people listen to something and then action it straight away. I think sometimes, which was kind of happening in the beginning of my podcast, a lot of this stuff was very future tense. Like I would be focusing on like how to get promoted in your career, which was this like multifactorial, 12, 18, 24 month plan you had to strategize. Whereas if you were like, how can I increase my sales today? How can I go from 0 to 1 to increase more sales? That's very actionable. And I find that a lot of guests like that type of content, and a lot of listeners can enjoy it and actually action it much better. So that'd be my advice there, helping people go from 0 to 1. I've already asked that question a lot of times, but it helpful to get much more strategic. One creator or author you've actioned the most info or advice from. It's hard to distill down to one, but I think a big person who has had a big influence on me was Tim Stoddard. So Tim is this agency owner. He's been in the agency space for 10 years. He spoke to me like very openly about his drug addiction that he had when he was younger, how he built his agency to $250,000 a month, how he's growing it right now to much more. I think his ambition is to get to 10 million a year, which is like $886,000 a month. And he really just told me basically how to automate, how to remove myself from the business, and also to focus in on areas that I'm actually truly good at, which is like the sales and marketing side of stuff as the founder. So he walked me through that process. He also walked me through the process of how to stay focused, staying out of alcohol. And this has been a big podcast about alcohol, but it's important, right? Is the fact that he was sober. He walked me through that process of reaching towards bigger goals, focusing on different goals, and how to actually be able to improve that. Now, he's someone who was very practical advice. If I was to give another example, someone like Jack Hopkins, and I love Jack, he gave me much more of I would say inspiration, because he's younger than me. His journey has been shorter than mine. He's been able to achieve way more success in a shorter period of time. So that inspires me to push harder. To some people, they just think, whatever, it's been easy for him. I'm the exact opposite. When I see someone who's smashing it, who's young, I always think this is huge inspiration for me. So he gave me a load of help with my content. I think the first thing he said to me was, he was like, you need to put more personal stories into your work. And I did it, and straight away it made a big impact for our podcast. I have followed up him considerably when we were at 5,000 subscribers, 10, 30, 40. And I said to him, like, thanks to your help, I made these changes and here is the outcome. Here is the result. And he can say, keep going, keep smashing it. And then people like Justin Waller have been very much more of a overall lifestyle piece of advice, because he kind of taught me the fact that, it's good to make money, it's good to focus really hard in the business, but you need to have this other element. You need to be a, quote unquote, a complete man in many regards. You need to have the relationships in check. You need to have your personal challenges in check. You can't be bringing this into the business. And, ultimately, a lot of your challenges will be represented in the business if you don't address them early on. So we've been able to kind of focus in on that. But that's been very recent, I would say. I would think that from the very beginning of Kickoff Sessions, there was many other guests that had a very big impact. So someone like Simon Ree, who was in Goldman Sachs for 20 years, he was a trader, then he went off to build his business. He showed me the fact that there's more to life than just working for these big companies, right? And at that point in 2020, 2021, I knew very little about the world. And even today, I know very little about the world. I can only share my personal experiences. And he gave me that idea that there is ideas outside of the 9 to 5. You can go build your business and it is achievable. And as time went on, I started to get more exposure to this. And that's the beauty of podcasting, right? You can learn from people's experiences and you can learn from people's pains. All right, guys, one short little update for Voex. I want to give a short little overview about my own company, my media company called Voex. So if you are a company or you are an enterprise looking to grow your brand and looking to grow your podcast, feel free to reach out to work with us at Voex. What we do is a fully fledged end-to-end management of your podcast. We take care of the strategy, the consulting, we take care of the growth, the management, we take care of all the editing, all the boring stuff so you can focus on creating good podcasts and create and growing your brand. If you want to grow your podcast and get to new users, if you want to grow your business, generate more revenue and all that good stuff, check out the links down below to Voex. You can follow through to schedule a call with our team, or else you can fill out the application form to see if you qualify to work with us. Thank you. Biggest guest on the way in Kickoff Sessions. So I can't disclose names. I don't want to disclose names because it's I guess it's kind of unfortunate if things don't follow through. But we are planning another tour. We're planning 2 tours, should I say. We're planning one mini tour that's coming up at the end of October, going into November. We're planning one other tour in December. That's going to be very big. The first mini tour is just something small. It's just a week tour. The following one is going to be much bigger. It's going to be a global tour. We've pulled in some of the best guests in the world, what I like to think, and we're really working aggressively towards that. I've partnered up with some of the biggest production companies actually in the world for some of the biggest creators in the world. So we've hired them to come in and basically create this top tier podcast that we're going to try to emulate. We're really trying to create something that's unique and that you cannot replicate. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. And the goal is to create a piece of content that isn't replicable by other people. That's our standard. We're working backwards. And the mission, as always, is to help as many people as possible with this content. So that's the first tour. It's going to be at the end of October. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. And the second tour is going to be in December. Now, in the meantime, we have a shit ton of guests that are going to be recorded online that are going to be great. We have some crazy guests coming up that are quite varied, right? I don't think it's always about like this young entrepreneur, just get shit done kind of vibe. I really want to get, others' perspectives. I want to get people who are old and older, people that have been there and done it, because I see that as being more valuable sometimes than just someone who has kind of had just like quick success. So like, let's take even for me, for example, like, my exposure to people has been very short, and I've only been doing this for a few years. So for me to say that the world looks like a particular way is not always correct. So therefore, I always want to be able to kind of mix things up and have different varied opinions. And that's going to be our next goal for our next tour, which is coming up in the next few weeks and a few guests. What's one thing you know now you would have done day one had you known? I think pushing my personal brand more so than anything else. So I think when you start out, you're hesitant to share your opinions, but your opinions are what people will attract to and stay to over the long term. So when you get a big guest on your podcast, like let's say Justin Waller, it shouldn't be, oh, Justin Waller is on this podcast. It should be, what will Darren Lee ask Justin Waller on Kickoff Sessions? And when you have that alignment between it's your own opinion, you're adding in this value, you're adding your own experiences, and you're tailoring this up with other people. It's a perfect concoction. It kind of reminds me of like when you saw the old YouTube vloggers do like collabs back in the day. It was like, oh, like Rob Lipsett and Joe Delaney are doing this like video on YouTube. Let's watch because I like Rob and I like Joe. That's kind of the way I kind of think about it. And for me, I guess it could have been like maybe insecurity. It could have been a, imposter syndrome or inferiority to some degree that I thought to myself I couldn't get my opinion across, whether that's even lifestyle or business or, even like health and fitness, which I obviously have a lot of experience in. So injecting that has made a big impact, and I wish I started that sooner. So my advice here is that if you're coming into this content space, whether it's a podcast, a newsletter, whatever, and you feel like that you don't have that much experience, focus in on one particular area that you do know really well. So if you can find something that you can speak of at length for 30 minutes, focus in on that. So for me, it was always a career initially, so career aspects. So I was really big on building my 9 to 5, building my career, building my social capital, all this kind of shit. And I actually really enjoyed that. So I had my perspective on that. I had got to a pretty senior position pretty young. I was like 25 years old, managing like a massive team of engineers. I was probably making just under 100K a year at 25. So that became valuable and people actually liked hearing that story. So I should have pushed that more. Now, of course, it's telling the story of my podcast, of Voix, of the content, and how we can pull it all in together. So lean into your experiences. Don't feel like you're not there yet because you are definitely ahead of someone else. All right, I'm jumping around these questions. Did you ever feel like giving up with your podcast in the early stages? 1000%. So I basically wanted to give up at every single stage in the beginning. And the reason why I stuck with it is because I knew speaking and communicating was just something that I enjoyed doing and that I was good at doing. But when it came to a podcast setup, I found it so difficult. I found it like very challenging to get my opinions across, to distill my thoughts, to even think clearly. And it used to piss me off that I couldn't do it well. Even the idea of a camera and a microphone just put me off. And it puts a lot of people off, especially guys who are very experienced, who want to get into content space but don't feel like that they have that ability. So for me, it became a big challenge, and at every point that I wanted to give up. In the very beginning, before I launched, I wanted to give up. When I bought my camera with a money fucking back guarantee, I wanted to give up. But you have to stick through the shit period, and knowing that the shit period will fade out is the best feeling ever. So if you can face any adversity and challenge with that principle that there's this learning curve, and it's a sharp learning curve. It's very tough. It's very difficult. But you will reach a point whereby you will get very proficient with it. You'll be able to think clearly and execute daily, even with a shit process. So if you're building a podcast and it's really shit in the beginning, know that you will build a process that you can execute on. So I brought this into all aspects of my life. It came originally from fitness, because of course I had a background in bodybuilding. I moved into endurance running, and from there I went back to bodybuilding, and then I brought it into my podcast, then I brought it into my business. So I've applied those principles from my podcast into my business now, which has been, it's been up and down. I would say it's nearly been more ups and down. We've been not lucky, but I think because I've built the experience in podcasting, it's of course helped me in the company because I've just gone and done it, right? So that's been very valuable. But taking those principles of you want to give up, but you're sticking with it and you're staying with it is incredibly, incredibly powerful. What do I think of X as a platform for starting the online creator journey? Good question. Twitter or X is something that I've definitely not cracked. The reason why is just time and prioritization. I haven't prioritized it, even though I've just used it generally just for like putting random tweets and sharing towards Instagram, because there is like a certain flavor of it. Someone like Dakota Robertson, he puts all his time into Twitter and helping people grow through Twitter. Even people like JK Molina, I know he does different stuff right now, but his main focus was ghostwriting on Twitter, and he helps a lot of people make money from Twitter even when they don't have big followings. I do think that the future of it is very bright with Elon Musk at the helm. Basically, he's looking at different ways to monetize the platform for creators, to pull them from other platforms, whether it's Threads, Instagram, or YouTube. He did mention about integrating video. I don't know where that is in terms of the product pipeline, but the future is bright. Now, at the same time, there's an element of, could Twitter go under? You know, there was a point of that for quite some time. I don't follow that closely, but I think building a platform at first, you just focus in on one. If you want to focus in on Twitter, focus in on Twitter. If you want to focus in on Instagram, focus on Instagram, like it was with LinkedIn or YouTube. I think the platform in many regards is irrelevant. I think it's the execution. I've seen some guys that just focus in on Instagram and they just do reels and they fucking smash it. They're doing like 100K a month. I've seen some guys who just create podcasts and that's it. You need to focus very deeply first on your first platform. You focus in on your ideal listener, ideal customer profile. You write authority style content. You write very specific content, and anything will grow. So if you want to grow on Twitter, you can grow on Twitter with that principle. If you want to grow on LinkedIn, you can grow on LinkedIn with that principle. But it's about being very focused in on helping someone, telling the story, and using content to bring across that message. And yeah, there's like a connotation towards Twitter about like that money Twitter space. And yeah, like it is what it is. I feel like the stuff with money Twitter is the fact that there's 1% of creators making all the money and 99% of creators are just like talking shit on the internet and just giving out about other people. I don't like the whole like, manosphere, like red pill bullshit where it's like looking down on other people. One of the things that I really don't like is the fact that if people try grow by shitting on other people, and I know so many people are focusing on this, is that their avenue for growth is like putting down other people and they like put themselves on a pedestal, and that's just not how you should position your content. I hate all that stuff. I hate all that kind of red pill bullshit, because fundamentally you're just going to attract a very toxic audience, and it's not focused on like personal like development or like positivity. It's just focused in on hating on a particular group. And to the same vein, it's not about being super positive all the time. It's about being realistic, right? So that's why I don't like that. And, a lot of it does stem from Twitter. You don't get any of that on other platforms. But if you're not opposed to it, or if you don't want to be involved with it, just don't follow those people, right? I literally deliberately don't follow people on Twitter that have that attitude, because it's not me, right? It's not my brand. It's not what I'm about. I want to help as many people as possible. I do not want to be there putting down other people, putting down people who have different challenges, all this kind of shit. It's not what I'm about, and I really don't like it. So again, pick Twitter if you want to. Go all in on it. It'll work if you go all in on it. Best way to distribute your podcast. So with this, I think just, as I mentioned previously, have a long form podcast. Then think about breaking it down into short form content. So use 3 to 5 clips per episode. Bring that to the different platforms: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, but position it deliberately towards your ideal listener. So if you're on Instagram, it's a younger audience that are less likely to just buy from you, and they're looking for help and advice. So help them. Walk them through that process with your content and let them learn from you. Use your content as that leverage tool to learn and to develop. That becomes very valuable. Don't just create random bullshit, right? Then when it comes to some platforms like YouTube, it's looking for growth and audience, so you're looking to help people through their struggles. And LinkedIn is about positioning you as an authority. So if you can be more positioned as that authority, someone with experience, that becomes very valuable to people on LinkedIn. At the same time, I like to redistribute my content from different aspects. So we use a lot of stuff with our newsletter. We write our content through our newsletter, and we bring the episodes through there, which is very valuable. You can go check out my newsletter down below too if you want to see that. So people get updates on the podcast. They also get updates from us on content on a weekly basis, so we can have that flywheel effect. So you just want to keep very specific, and over time just add on more stuff. Don't try to do everything at once, because you're going to literally catch nothing. What is Voix? Always see you posting, but short answer, what is it? So Voix is my media company. It is a podcast media company which focuses on the production, management, growth of shows. So basically what we focus on is entrepreneurs podcasts, people with businesses, people with companies. We grow their podcast. And why this has been valuable is because we did it for me, someone with no experience, no network, no money, no background, and we take that exact same principle and we bring it to bigger clients. So people who have an idea what they're talking about, who have a business and have products or services to sell. And that's when it works really effectively, because we need to have good content and good distribution. So what we've been able to do is help people with the strategy, the coaching, the consulting, and then also execute on their episodes. So usually what I found is when I used to tell people when I was consulting about how to improve their podcast, they would hear it. They would hear it perfectly, but they would never execute on it. So what I like being able to do is work on the strategy piece of stuff with people, help them through their struggles, and then also record with them. So they record online or in studios, and then we just basically execute everything. We produce the episodes, we manage the episodes, we grow the platforms, and then we take over the full content. And that's been very helpful for us because we've been able to transform what they're doing right now, which is kind of boring and static and dry, not getting leads, not generating revenue, and then partner with people. That's one side of it. The second side of the business, which I think is kind of more exciting to some degree, is the sponsorships. So what we do is with a lot of our clients, when they are a client of us, we bring them sponsors. So we've been able to partner with some crazy global brands. Like I won't mention the names, but some huge companies, and they will sponsor our companies, our podcasts. So on top of being able to run shows and improve shows, we've been able to actually make them a shit ton of money through sponsorships, which is a big aspect too. And yeah, it's awesome, right? So if you're interested to hear more on this stuff, always feel free to reach out. There's like links down below and all that kind of stuff that you can check out more of our content. All right, so we're going to get into some more philosophy style questions, more deep, meaningful stuff. What is the meaning of life to you? I honestly think that the meaning of life is just to serve and help other people. Because if your goal is even driven around money, the best way to make money is to be able to help and serve other people. If you are so focused on yourself and everything is self-centered around you, you're not going to get really far. You're only going to be able to make money if you can help other people. You're only going to be able to have good relationships if you can help other people. The amount of people that try to suck stuff out of you, whether it's business, whether it's advice, whether it's your experience, or even your time, it's just a massive tax that you don't want to pay, right? It's a tax of your attention and the tax of your time that you're giving to other people. So the meaning of life to me is just being able to help other people. And you can do this in many different regards. We do it through Kickoff Sessions, again, with our podcast. We do it through our company. We do it through just like getting back to people and helping people, because that leads to a richer life, right? If I'm only plugging numbers in a spreadsheet for some bullshit bank in Ireland, what does that do? Like, what is actually the meaning of that? Yeah, you can get money and you help and support your family, but you can also help and support your family in many different ways. I earned literally 10 times more money and made way more connections and had much more of a happier lifestyle when I just tried to help other people. And this is when it gets kind of funny, because even when I'm like in discovery calls with people or messaging people that are prospects, I'm always like, yeah, like, let's hop on a call. I'll try help you. Like, how can I help? And people think that I'm trying to sell them something, and often I'm just trying to help them, because that for me brings me much more enjoyment than just going through life, this hedonic treadmill, getting paced, out there, just, doing nothing that's actually beneficial for life, and then you can't actually be able to improve your own life. So by helping other people, you can build the businesses that you love, you can help people that you love, and you can also have a better lifestyle. Then when you acquire the wealth and you acquire the status and you acquire all this kind of stuff that people think that they want to pursue, you can still do those things and you can help even more people. So we have a charity that I mentioned previously, and it's a pretty big charity now at this stage. Myself and my partner started that charity at 25 years old. She was like 20 years old as well at the time, right? And at the time, we didn't even have that much money. As we've been able to earn more money, we've been able to flood more money into our charity. And that's been, on helping animals, primarily helping dogs, and being able to rehome them and basically bring them back to life, a lot of them, because some of them are very injured. And that brings me more fulfillment, again, the help element, than just make money on the internet. Then just try to get more downloads, just try to get more views. So by helping, you become of service, and becoming of service, you contribute 10 times more to everyone else and life. So I think we can try focus more on that. And even if you're in the scarcity mindset whereby you think, oh, I need to get my first client, I need to make more money, I need to get my first 10K, you can still get to those things when you try to help other people, if you're not thinking with a zero-sum game. And this is where it gets funny, because a big part of what I do online is to showcase other people. And I had a question on a previous Q&A that I didn't actually answer, I regret not answering, which was, why do I help people? Why do I help other people in their podcasts? Because I believe that life isn't a zero-sum game. If you go through life thinking life is a zero-sum game, you're going to get nowhere. If you think the only way that you can succeed is by pushing someone down, you have got it wrong. You've got life wrong. You've just messed it up. That's not the whole point. The point isn't to be on the mountain on your own. The point is to be on the mountain with all the people around you who pushed you on that journey. And that's a big part I mentioned about the friends, right? Have the right friends that push you in this right direction. Even with our partners, some of my clients are genuinely my actual friends because they became clients because we got on so well. I validated them, they validated me that we actually wanted to work together, and that's the beauty of it. So even with other people, so Jack Hopkins that I mentioned, we've worked on things through our podcast, and we're working on other stuff through our podcast that builds a better relationship. Even Thomas Spark, who hasn't been on the podcast yet, who will be soon. We, as men, we team up with each other and we help each other, and that leads us to being so much happier. I literally leave these interactions with these people sometimes, and I'm just 10 times more, rejuvenated, vitalized, energized, than someone just saying, oh, looking down on that person for doing that. And that's just the worst mindset ever to have, right? Looking down on other people. How do you appreciate the good times when you're in them? Good question, and something that I don't struggle with, but something that I'm mindful of. So it's very easy to, again, go through the hedonic treadmill. More money, more downloads, more revenue and all this. I try to appreciate the good times by setting those mini goals. So, and this is something that I'm struggling with even from a training perspective right now. I spoke to my coach about this today, saying that I'm struggling to get my next goal with my fitness. Instead of just getting super fucking shredded and having shredded glutes, what we want to try to do is have these miniature goals. So if I'm working towards a health goal, like let's say getting leaner or getting more muscular or building muscles, when I achieve that, we should stop and really appreciate that in the moment. When I got to 50k subscribers, myself and my partner, we celebrated it. We were like, this is awesome. Like, let's really celebrate this and enjoy it. So it's about appreciating those good times. When I record a big podcast, I sit there and I watch it and I look at it and I think, this is fucking sick. It's going to help so many people. And then I look at the next miniature goal from there. So setting those mini goals makes me not get too caught up in the numbers, right? And even from like a revenue perspective, our business now is much bigger than what it's ever been. So it's very important to focus on the future. We have to appreciate the times as well at the same time. We look at where we're doing, we look at the clients we have, the results we've gotten, the enjoyment we get from it, and we, even though we're a startup, we try to appreciate those times, right? And we try to really focus in on that, and then plan the next one. We work towards the next goal. So, for the podcast, it could be 100k subscribers. That's going to take quite some time. Hopefully, it might not take too long, but let's break it down: 60k, 70k, 80k, 90k. And that's appreciating the good moments. Then from a lifestyle perspective, I'm in a relationship. I always try to appreciate that very much. We have a very strong relationship. Elise supports the business. I support her. And she supports the mission. And taking appreciation for that too is important, because you don't know how long you're going to have left, right? Like, this could all end tomorrow. I could go outside the studio and get hit by a bus, basically. So you need to be able to appreciate what's happening in the moment, but then also look towards your next goal. Why did you leave Ireland? I think this is the last question as well. So I think for me, it's not like I left like Ireland. It's like I left kind of like Western culture to many regards. I think with a lot of the stuff that happened with the scandemic and all this, like Ireland just became, like a lot of countries, just the worst of the worst, right? Like, it's like a breeding ground for everything that could have went wrong. Like, all this border lockdown shit, all the lockdown, like, couldn't go outside, like, all this kind of stuff. It's just like, it's just shocking. It's not how you should live your lifestyle. It's not how you should live your life. You had people who are super unhealthy and unfit telling you how you should live your life, right? That was the first thing. But to be honest, it's been going on for quite some time. Like, the biggest thing for me is like the weather and the climate. I do not like how in the UK and Ireland it's like dark 90% of the time. It's raining 90% of the time. It's not positive towards a healthy lifestyle. You can only go outside for like, I don't even know how long you go outside, like probably like 10% of the fucking week you can spend outside because it's raining, right? Even when I used to do long distance running, I used to run in the lashing rain, and everyone that's from Ireland understands like the gale force winds, how bad it is. And people always talk about like runner high and how healthy it is for you. I used to be 10 times worse after it. I used to put down like 30, 40K at a weekend, and it was so unbearable. So for me, lifestyle factors, the fact that the weather's so bad, had to get out of that. The second thing is the drinking culture as well. That culture that's less around drive and purpose and more around like enjoyment and entertainment, I'm just not a big fan of. And I felt like that. I thought it was quite strange how when I used to work these 9 to 5s, people would always talk about like the weekend or the Thursday night, Taco Thursdays, drinks Fridays, and I just didn't understand it, and I just felt so weird to me that I was the outlier who didn't want to do this. And I was like, that's just kind of weird, right? How I don't want to put toxic shit in my body and just eat all this shitty food. No, am I the only weirdo that doesn't want to do this? So I found that was kind of weird. And then obviously my partner is not Irish, she's American, and she was very much similar to me. One of the main reasons why we even like met is because she was really into traveling. She spent a lot of years traveling, and so did I. So it was like we both didn't want that kind of lifestyle of being in like an office, being in this like dreary country effectively, and we wanted to get out of it. And then of course with COVID, it just everything amplified, right? Everything amplified. We really kind of began to see what these countries were like the UK and Ireland just got very, very negative. It could be different now. I just don't spend that much time there. So I didn't really want to get out of there. I didn't really want to be there. And the last thing is that small poppy syndrome, right? That it's just kind of ironic how when I put up anything to do with my podcast or anything positive, it is never the people that I was around when I was younger that interact with it. Never. Not one person, like ever. It's all just people that I've met along the journey that are similar, that are either like American, Canadian, some British to be fair, maybe some Irish people that are kind of doing this internet stuff, and a lot of people that I've met from traveling. So I thought it's quite funny how like that tall poppy syndrome, whatever it's called, is that like they cut down people when they put their head up. And I just like doing this stuff. I like recording, I like speaking with people, I like creative work, I like the pursuit of an endeavor, I like the challenges, I like to put myself under challenge, I like to press really hard. And it's kind of like a lot of people didn't want to do that, and a lot of people didn't want even me to do that, and it's just kind of strange. So, I really appreciate people who follow the podcast, but for me, it's kind of been a bit more alluring to see that a lot of people don't want to see you do that well, and that becomes a bit of a challenge. And how fucking toxic is that if we just think about it, right? That, people want to see you fail, and they want to see you, so people want to see you do well, just not better than them. So that's super toxic, the fact that people don't want to see you do extremely well, even when you're not doing it. They want to just keep you down, keep you poor, and not want to see you push on and do more. And I think if you feel that, and this isn't just me, by the way, like I get messages with this very frequently from people, guys that say that they want to do more, but their friends are keeping them down, they're pulling them into the pub and all this kind of shit. The best way to do it is just to leave, right? And you don't need to just get up and just fucking disappear, but put a strategy in place. Spend 1 month of the year in Marbella, spend another month of the year in Thailand, spend another month of the year in Dubai, and surround yourself with those people. And these people will tell you, like, yeah, move here, I'll help you get set up an apartment, come live with me. The amount of people in Asia that have like big villas and they let other people just move in with them is actually crazy. I love the idea. If I didn't have a bunch of fucking dogs, I'd do something similar. I did have people that just come and, friends that stay for a month or two. And that's help, right? Help, support, driven, purpose, mission. I just didn't get a lot of it in Ireland. Not to say that there isn't, I just didn't get a lot of it. So if I didn't get it, instead of seeking it and potentially not getting it, I'd just go somewhere that I can definitely get it. When I was in Singapore, I would get DMs from people on LinkedIn like once a week. It was like, let's go for coffee, let's meet, let's see how I can help you, let's see how we can progress together, let's see how we can push together, let's see what doors I can open. And I love that progressive approach. And same in Thailand, in Bali, in Dubai. When I arrived in Dubai in June, was it? I just had like 10 messages from people being like, let's meet, let's see what we can do, what we can work on. And whether shit materializes or not, it opens your mind up to what's possible. It gives you that new perspective. And I think that the goals and the focus in Western culture are often misaligned. And you have places like the US that are very driven. Now, and I think the US gets a lot of shit. A lot of it, I don't know, whether you think it's warranted or not, it is what it is. But you do have those people that are super driven and goal orientated, and you surround yourself with those, and they're a great help for you. Same in the UK, same in Ireland, right? But you need to find out those people. But if you're still sticking with your same fucking small town mentality, it's going to be very tough for you to escape that, because environment design is everything. If you've listened to any podcast in the past, I've always mentioned that environment design will determine your outcome. So that's from where you work, to who you hang around with, to what your goals are, to what your ambitions are. And if people aren't along for the ride, that's okay. You just find people that are. And when you start posting shit online, you'll find that group of people, because they are there and they're looking for other people. You want to team up with other weirdos on a similar mission to you, and that's what makes the goal worthwhile. And that's what makes it much more fulfilling and interesting. You all help each other. So that's it for today. Probably just over an hour recording. A bit shorter than last time, which I quite like. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, I'd really, really appreciate it if you just left a like on this video, comment on it. If you want to subscribe to, it's very helpful. We got a ton of more podcasts coming out in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, it should be a lot of good. It's a lot of fun. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.